Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dev Talk Show here with Rich Ross. This is Chris Gomez. It's not quite 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and it is September 28th of 2023. Almost October.
Yeah,
Almost October.
so close.
Yeah, right around the corner. How's it going this morning?
Good. Still waiting for the coffee to take effect, but other than that, it's a good morning. How about you?
Yeah, it's the weather changed so quickly, and we've
Mm-hmm.
had like kind of a dreary sort of couple of days. The sun will poke out now and then, and it'll be absolutely gorgeous, but then kind of dreary this morning. Not raining or anything, but I don't know if that's going to happen later. I haven't looked. I've barely made it through, like the next hour, so I have not been spending a lot of time figuring out what the weather's going to be like or anything like that. Um, it's been
I,
busy.
yeah, yeah. I looked a little bit ahead to the weekend. It's supposed to go back up, upper 70s, almost to 80, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and that's important because I actually have tickets to go see the Eagles play Sunday. So I'm
Oh,
looking
awesome!
forward to go doing that. First,
Yeah,
first time going to a game as a fan.
an NFL game.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think you've said you've been like crew or on sidelines, things like that.
Yep. Yeah. Still
Yeah.
part of the backups for the sideline crew, and got a
Okay.
couple games I'm doing not until November and December. But this is one my daughter Emily has wanted to go for a long time, so this
Yeah.
was a chance to get her to go.
Oh, that's fantastic. We'll have a
Yeah.
great time.
That. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're gonna be at hockey rinks.
It's
There's
that time of year.
yeah, there's a game Saturday and a game Sunday.
Okay.
So that's okay. It'll be fun. It's starting to pick up now.
Yeah, I do miss that a little.
Yeah. So anyways, today we, as a lot of folks know, if you've been watching the show, we have been sometimes an hour at a time working towards recreating the Dev Talk Show website, and doing so with looking forward to .NET 8, which is now currently in release candidate 1. I don't think there was any surprise announcement this morning or yesterday. I think we're going to see a release candidate 2 soon-ish, if you consider that .NET Conf is coming up in November, and that's the plan. So
Yeah.
that's what we're hearing from the ASP.NET team and the .NET team, is the plan for that to all release at .NET Conf, which is a fun 24-hour multi-day event. I don't know if every day is 24 hour, but there's the one day, the 24-hour day, where they have they go through different time zones, trying to have speakers in every time zone or something like that around the world. It's pretty cool to just
Hmm.
have the whole community join in on that day.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah. So for us, and this is something we've talked about before, is there's a few things that I personally, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, and see if there's even more to add to the list. There are things that I like to try and get working in a site almost immediately, and the reason for me is that because it's very easy to get a full head of steam and then realize you have to add these things in, and it's not like sprinkling some salt on your site. This is deeply ingrained in what you're doing. And for me, the two things are getting your CI/CD set up. What is your deployment path? Doesn't matter to me what it is, but just, do you have that planned out very early? And if
Mhm.
it's going to be based on check-ins, like if it's going to be based on commits and something like continuous delivery pipelines of some kind, get that done fast. Like
Right.
even some of your earliest commits are going out that direction. That even matter, like if you're going to do blue green deployment, and that, I guess a lot of times you don't know that when you're starting a site. You don't realize until later, like, wow, we should really do this blue green.
Right.
um
And that
yeah
kind of becomes a production discussion, right? And
yeah
I mean, you may know those business requirements up front, but oftentimes, just the common stuff you're doing for your dev cycle. CI/CD is going to be hugely important, regardless of whether in the end, for that final step out, you get that blue-green part going.
Yeah. Another piece, and I suppose we could probably think of a lot of other things too, but another piece, which if you're looking at the title of today's show, is your authentication and authorization. It can be very hard to add this in later.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the basic plan, yeah, you're at least in better shape.
Definitely.
So let's talk about what we think we need for the Dev Talk Show, and then I want to bring up one other example because I'm not sure that the Dev Talk Show's needs are all that. They're not all that in depth compared to another scenario. So, for example, I think when it comes to the Dev Talk Show website, I think we see it as kind of a landing place that might be, it might have a video feed, a feed of different recent videos. It's possible someday like a blog could be there, but it's kind of what you would maybe consider of as like a news or announcement site. It's not necessarily something that I'm thinking of as being super interactive, where I want to be able to take logins from people I do know, don't know. I want somebody to come here and sign up. I suppose it could get that to that, but really, right. It's okay. What if we had a couple admin pages so that we're not constantly going back to code or going back to data stores to say, well, let me get something in there. What if we built some features that allowed us to administer it right on the site? Well, then I'd want to make sure it was like near you. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Don't want to have anybody out there in the wild just go ahead and change in our site.
Yeah. So there's that approach. But I wanted to bring up another one, and it's I'm going to bring it up in terms of I happen to be in a small homeowners association. There really aren't that many of us. And because it's small, we don't have a management company. It would be very expensive to have a management company for a small number of homes. And quite frankly, we're small enough that most of the time, all we really do is mail out a statement with the next dues payment, and they can update about what's going on, which isn't a whole lot. Every once in a while, we have a big maintenance project to do, but that's about it. So we don't have any kind of web presence. We haven't really felt that one was needed, but more and more folks are asking two questions. They're saying, do I have to get my statements in the mail?
Okay.
And why can't I pay my dues online or something like that? And I don't really want to tackle the second one right now, but it got me thinking about the first one of saying, like, one thing that I do is I do produce a statement, and they're printed out and they're stuffed in envelopes and they're stamped and they're mailed into people that are like right there and right there and right there. And there's some legal reasons for doing that. I think it protects the association to use the US mail, and that's all fine and good. But what if we had a website where somebody could log in and then look at a PDF of that same exact statement, and then maybe they could even like download it and click something that says like, I viewed my statement. And if they do that before I've sent out the US mail versions, then maybe I don't have to send one. I haven't really thought that 100% through. But I thought, okay, well, how would I authenticate these folks?
Right.
And I'd love to hear some of your ideas. The main idea that I have right now is we do have a lot of email addresses and we have a lot of phone numbers.
Okay.
So instead of having them create yet another account, which is really, frustrating these days, how many passwords are in your password manager?
Right.
I'm getting close to 400 on mine. What if we could do something that I see other sites do? Free Code Camp does this, for example, is if I choose to log into Free Code Camp with an email address, they don't ask me for a password. They say, okay, I'm going to send you an email, and it's got a code, and you come back with the code and you're good for some amount of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a secure, or kind of a secure chain, right? If assumes that the person I'm sending the email to, they're the only one with access to that account.
Yeah.
But that is kind of a reasonable assumption, not many people share email addresses.
Yeah, the very site that we're using to record this today does the same thing. If I remember correctly, StreamYard does not have a password.
Right.
I think StreamYard says, okay, I'm going to send you an email. And so look, as a user of, and this is a different discussion, we're now expecting, but I think this ship has already sailed, that you have to defend your email account vigorously.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter what we do at the Dev Talk Show website or at this HOA website. We're talking about your bank is willing to let you reset your password using your email address. So it's something you have to defend. You have to defend your email. You have to be very vigilant about making sure that you probably use multi-factor authentication and that you're very careful about being able to get into that account, because you can't lose access to it. You're in big trouble if you do. And also just not letting someone else have access to it. So,
and I know multi-factor can be a pain. I got it. Where's my phone? I got to do this.
Yep.
It's far less of a pain if somebody was to get into your account.
I know. Yeah.
I keep telling myself. So,
yeah. I mean, I guess the intention is not to, because the audience that we're talking to today, probably, this is they're more aware of this than, say, the people that I truly worry about, which are like neighbors, family, who their primary life is not about software and development. And the fact that we very long ago decided that the security of our entire lives would be bound by a string of 10 to 12 to 18 characters that hopefully we don't even know and is sitting in a password manager somewhere. The other thought that I had is, since I do have a lot of phone numbers for you homeowners, is maybe you could also come to that very site and you could put in your phone number and get a text message, and it would be the same exact experience as, okay, well, we're going to send you a text message. Here's the code, put the code in, and now you can come in. And the only functionality the site would have for now is just simply getting your statement. And there isn't a ton of personal information on the statement. I suppose it could still feel invasive if somebody had your homeowners association statement, but it's really just saying, well, here's what's outstanding. Okay. It's not exactly like public information, but it also kind of is in some ways. And then second is, I think in some future, I might say, well, look, you can pay if you want. And I suppose if somebody really wants to come to the site and pay for you, then, and these are the kinds of things you think about as the threat, is what's the threat. And I don't know that the threat is super high. So I'm not sure if there was really anything to draw out, but what I thought we could do is we could take a look at what the experience is like starting a new project. And again, we're going to stick with Blazor because we're all amped up on Blazor and ASP.NET Core 8.
Yeah.
And see how quickly we can get authentication in there. I don't think we'll get to authorization, but we can at least see how quickly we can get authentication in there, and probably learn a little bit too, right? So
yeah, definitely.
All right. So let me get, and then I don't know if it's coming through the mic, but my dog is like jumping around back there.
He's a little active this morning, I can hear.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Oh, whoops, not that one. I want this one. And I think I even forgot to put the logo up today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We didn't have the logo when we were talking there, which now is like over my face, but that's okay. All right. So that happens to be Visual Studio. I guess we can start in Visual Studio today. Everything we're doing could be done from the .NET CLI as well. Well, actually, now I'm kind of interested.
How's that?
Is
you'd have to look at the switches if I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, is in the .NET CLI for Blazor. Let's see, .NET New Blazor. What was it called again? Let me make this full screen, make it a little bit bigger. It was .NET New List. And I don't know that you get, no, since I said help, I don't think I get all the templates. And now I say list, and I get all the templates. And it's just called Blazor. For some reason, I couldn't remember that. And we'll say Blazor, and I'm curious what's in here. Okay, So the one thing that is not in here, and I think it's because maybe it's not added yet. Oh no, whether to turn off HTTPS. This only applies if used for auth, but I didn't see auth up here. See how I don't see auth in the template options?
Yeah.
And yet if I do Blazor server, which is a .NET 7 template, I know for sure we're going to see it.
Yeah, because there's talk about passwords and stuff in there.
Right. I think this could be an RC issue. I am not trying to at all say that, oh my gosh, auth's not going to be part of the projects. This could be an RC1 issue. So we won't worry about that. Let's so I mean we can start in Blazor 7 and then see where we're at in the RC. Maybe if we do that.
Okay.
So I happen to be in Visual Studio 2022. This is not the preview version. I'm gonna pick Blazor Server App, and let me double check what's in my source folder here. Okay. This may not be the last time we start this project. If you've been following along, you've probably seen us start this several times. We're probably getting closer to where we're saying, okay, this is it. This is the one. So I'm going to go ahead and type TheDevTalkShow.web, but I am going to make a quick change here. I'm going to say the solution name is just the Dev Talk Show, but the project that we're making is the website. And I will not say to place the solution and project in the same directory.
Cool.
And we'll say .NET 7 is fine. And I'm going to go ahead and pick individual accounts here. So I had different options. I had individual accounts, Microsoft Identity Platform, Windows. That's just the traditional Windows like domain account type stuff. I'm going to pick individual accounts. I am not going to enable Docker today. I think we could. I don't think it would be an issue at all. And I'm going to go ahead and leave HTTPS on. And we'll click create. And, we get this nice overview page that basically says, welcome, welcome. But more importantly, because we've been looking at code lately, is let's see what's happened here to the program CS. The first thing that jumps out of me is we have Entity Framework Core in here now. On line 6, I'm seeing that. Also, if you remember from previous, you might remember this from .NET 7, the add Razor pages and add server-side Blazor, but not all of the stuff that's setting up Entity Framework Core again, right? And some of the services some of the dependency injection is being set up, especially for this authentication state provider. So if you're asking what did they, and then the rest of it is pretty straightforward. So if you're asking what did they do, well, what they did is they set us up. When you pick individual accounts, they set you up with you're ready to go to use EF Core and your own database to store usernames and password information. And you're not going to store passwords. It's going to be password hashes and stuff. So you're ready for that experience right out of the box, which is welcome to the site, register. Here's what's your password? Send you a confirmation email. And you just get that whole thing kind of for free. And it's not something you're going to find as you're looking around. You definitely have some new shared pages, such as the login display and stuff like that. And we've got some Entity Framework migrations ready to go. And then there's a whole identity area with pages for the account to log people out, the login partial. So you're getting a lot of stuff. And it does seem to work, but it by default, you're set up with EF Core and user accounts that people will sign in and create. So, and we can take a look at what that looks like if you don't, you do nothing more than just file a new project. Let's see. Now the question is, where did the app go? Oh, here it is. So we've seen this page a million times, except we have a couple new links up in the upper right. Yeah. I can click login and it's going to say, okay, we'll use an account to log in. And you can change all this. You can say, I don't want it to say local account. We just to show you, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, is if I go to areas, identity, login partial, I was pretty sure that we could find these pages. Of course, now I say that. Oh, login display, is this it? Because I don't think you're stuck with that language that says use a local account. I do not believe that's true. Maybe we'll search for that in a little bit. But anyways, use a local account to log in. And the other thing about this is it kind of guides you too. See how it says like, well, you don't have any other authentication configured. Now, granted, you wouldn't show this, right? So I can't log in here because I don't have an account. I could register as a new user and I can throw an account in here. It doesn't really matter what it is. We'll use the DevTalkShow. And oh, it's cool how it wants to give me a password suggestion, but that's more complicated than I want it to be. See if I can remember that. Oh man, I think I already forgot it. Okay, just to register with something. Oh, well, okay. Let's try something else. I think that by default they want a capital letter too. So I'm trying to make it something I can type quickly. Register. Okay. Okay, so here's what happens though. It blows up by saying, well, hold on a second. I could not reach this database. I couldn't find it. And well, it's because we didn't run the migration. So if you're new to EF Core, there's a migration already set up to use here, but we didn't run it. So that means the database doesn't exist. And by default, they go ahead and they want to create this database here. I think that can all be changed. You're not stuck with it basically. And let me see if I can bring up Azure Data Studio, which I can. So here we are in Azure Data Studio, and this is local DB. So it's set up to hit the local DB root instance. And I don't have any databases in here, nothing. So what's interesting is it really plugs you along. They're telling you like, well, you can click the apply migrations button and they will apply the migration right in the code. Or you can use package manager console, update database, or if you have the EF global tool, you can apply the migration that way. So it really guides you along, Oh, I think you're on mute, Rich, maybe.
Oh, yes, it was. Sorry. Yeah, it makes it challenging not to mess that up.
Yeah. So I think what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and just click the apply migrations button because now it's just going to apply the migration right in the code. And it says, oh, migration applied, refresh the page. And actually, let's just start over. And we'll say register. And we're going to do this again, the DevTalkShow. And super simple password that I think I will not forget as we're doing this. And then I love this too, where they say, you don't have an email sender registered. So we've got a way to simulate that you got the email and can confirm. And in a way, I kind of like this because it just gets you going,
Yeah, I got to build this out.
So confirm the email, back to the site. Still, one last time, isn't this the frustrating part about signing up for a site? This is exactly why we don't like this stuff. At least maybe we do, maybe we don't. And now finally, hello, here you are. I can manage account settings. And this is all coming to me just by picking individual accounts in that startup. I'm getting all of this. I don't know if there's more wiring up to do for things like two-factor auth. I didn't look into that. But I could add a phone number to my profile. I could change my email. I could change my password. And then I suppose we could also fill out this personal data form and maybe save that off somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. If I close this, because I went ahead you might have noticed that I clicked the remember me button.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to close this. I'm going to come back to the site, and here we are. Still remembers me. I'm even going to close the browser, and let's open a new browser. Oh, but closing the browser means the app closed. So
Shutting
let's
off
just
the.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a Visual Studio thing. I
Yeah.
notice that doesn't happen when I'm in Visual Studio Code.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Still logged in. So that's doing what we expect, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Now the reality is though is that I'm not a big fan of individual accounts. I kind of want to log in with an account I already have,
Yeah. Can I,
So yeah, go ahead.
before you move on, because I wanted
Uh-huh.
to chime in on that too. So in the end, what happens though is you have a database that has your list of users with their email address. And yes, it might have a hashed password in there somewhere. But the point is, it's in your control. So you're responsible for making sure that data stays secure where it is. You're responsible if somebody says, hey, I kind of forgot my password, right? Now you're on the hook to get it changed because I didn't see anything in there that says, hey, change my, well, there was a change my
There
password.
was there was a change password. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
not a
know about
forgot.
forgot your password. I
Yeah.
don't. I suppose we could look through it, right?
Yeah. I just, with some of the things we're going to show next with identity providers that are out there and ways that you can move all of that responsibility to somebody else, there, I really strongly suggest shying away from something like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's still in there, it's still in the tooling, it's still a possibility. There's so many better options that take the responsibility off of you as the developer for owning that application.
Yeah. Right. And so as we can see, by doing everything that was in the default setup and running the migration, we did get this database, and here it is. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm not even 100% sure where that connection string comes from. I'm going to, okay, so here it is. It's sitting in app settings. So it's sitting in app settings, and they just put all this stuff in by default to get you going.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to add another service, and we can do that. And there's even some documentation that we can follow, which we'll make sure to get in show notes and everything. There is in the ASP.NET documentation under authentication in the ASP.NET Core docs, we do have this page that says Facebook, Google, and external provider authentication in ASP.NET Core. And they walk you through. There's even links out to Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft. And I think what we'll do is we will, maybe with the time we have left, let's see if we can implement like Google and Microsoft.
Okay.
And just see what kind of issues do we run into, any issues, things like that. It turns out that the way this works is, let's see, they've already talked about applying migrations, like they already went through all that, fine. They do have a little bit of information here that if you're using a proxy or a load balancer, they've got some blurb here on how you got to make sure that headers are forwarded to, and that's fine. And then we're going to want it. So this is also good because this is going to help us take a look at the user secrets feature of ASP.NET.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, we're probably going to want to move this off to like a key vault, which I think we will do. I just don't know if it'll be today. But let's take a quick peek at how you do this, and we'll see how much of this I remember. And we've got the documentation to back us up too. So
Okay.
the first thing is we need a NuGet package.
All right.
So I'm going to right click on the project. Obviously, we could do this from command line as well. There's add package references from command line. And I'm going to browse for Microsoft ASP.NET Core. And then I think it's authentication, and it's trying to help me. And I think it's Google. So there is, by Microsoft, there is a middleware package that's ready to go to support Google workflows. If we keep doing, if I type in Facebook, we're going to see one for Facebook. We're going to see one for Twitter. We're going to see one for Microsoft. Microsoft's is called Microsoft Account. In this case, this is a workflow to support logging in with your Microsoft account, not necessarily logging into Works domain or anything like that.
Yes. So
and
the Live, the Outlook, the MSN accounts, those
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
some of the classic ones. Hotmail.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and click this one and say install. And we're going to click apply. And they're saying, hey, make sure you lawyer, MIT licensing. Okay, we did. That's good. Awesome. Little thing turned green. Let's take a look. It doesn't really do a whole lot. In fact, it doesn't do anything in terms of here in the app, because what we're going to do now is we are going to we need to get the configuration. We need to configure Google authentication with Google. Like, Google needs to know that we're doing this, but we also need to add to services. We should now have this add authentication extension method.
Mm-hmm.
And then hanging off of it. Oh, look at that. Copilot's like, did you just want these? And it turns out that yes, this is what I was about to do. So I'm going to go ahead and hit tab, but we don't need all of it. So for now, let's comment this out and go ahead and put a semicolon here to close that off. This is exactly what we were going to do. Is we were going to say, let's go to configuration and let's get the secret and the client ID that we need as an application in order for Google to basically say, okay, here's an application that's requesting that you're allowed to use our login. So what is the next question I think a lot of people have, and be curious what you think here is what does this mean when it says builder configuration and it shows you this string?
Mm-hmm. So when I see that means it's expecting to have that as in our app settings or in some kind of a configuration area for us to then pull that data back.
Yeah, it could be app settings. It can also be environment variables.
Yep.
You can even pass these variables in a .NET command line. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can use app settings if you like, but if your organization prefers to say, hey, we don't want any of that in source control, the IT folks manage it. And when they fire that container out there, they also inject environment variables with these secrets, and compliance handles that. Like maybe you really have it separated out. You've got plenty of options.
Yeah.
But the issue is now is how I mean, I could just come to app settings here and I could just punch these in right here.
Right. Like the connection string did. But then what happens? Right? You go to a check-in and all of a sudden that data is now part of the tree. And
that's right.
It can be removed, but it's a multi-step process to get it removed from the tree.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something outside of our code base that we can use to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple ways to do it. I'm going to use Visual Studio for this. I do both. I like to show both, but unfortunately, we're only going to see one of them. But the key is we're going to use the secret manager, which is ASP.NET's way for developers to manage secrets in a spot that is purposely outside of your source control folder. And I think it's just that the idea is the likelihood that you're going to accidentally check this in is just nil. So how do I make one of those? Yeah.
It's not that great a chance that you would accidentally find it. It's kind of hidden.
It is. I agree. And
I kid. You can get to it, but it's not.
No, you can't. And that's
and
that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at exactly where it is. So in Visual Studio, you right click on your project. You say Manage User Secrets. Yep. If you are out at the command line, in .NET, you're using you're using, say you're using VS Core,
Yep.
there is user secrets. There it is.
Yep.
And you can do something like this. I'm
User
gonna
secrets
go.
init?
Yeah, that's right. And it'll set that up for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
You got to be in the location where the project file is.
That's right.
Because that's what it modifies.
Right. It looks for a project file, it modifies it, and so on. And it's not that I even think this is bad. I like this. I love both methods, but I can only pick one. And today we happen to be in Visual Studio. Maybe another time we'll do all of this in Linux. And that's something I actually really want to keep exploring, is that as we're building this site, it's okay that today we're here, tomorrow we're in Linux, another day we're in VS Code and in a dev container on GitHub code spaces. Like, keeping your project nimble like that is something I really appreciate. So let's say manage user secrets. And part of the reason here is because now we can go find out for sure where this is on Windows, because it's not always in the same spot. Like if you're in Linux, if you're on Mac, your mileage definitely will vary. But this is really in app data, Microsoft user secrets. And then what they do by default is they create a folder with your project name, and then they throw a GUID on it. And there's a little secrets.json sitting here. So one way I could get to it. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, if I just use the app data variable, a lot of people may not know about that. The app data variable is % app data %. Boom. Takes me, then I can go to Microsoft. And then now I got to remember what it was. I think it was Microsoft,
ASP?
right?
Yeah.
Oh, it was user secrets.
There you go.
So user secrets, and then, oh, well, which GUID was it? It was this one, I'm pretty sure. Oh, no, it wasn't.
No, it was the ASP.NET.
It was this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the project file, and I'm just kind of curious, usually, so the project, if we say edit project file, you'll see that reference in there, and it's the entire reference to that file name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one thing I heard this week, which was kind of interesting, is that it doesn't have to. Oftentimes, it defaults to that's kind of new. It threw all that other stuff in there, because usually it was always a GUID in the past,
right?
And it doesn't have to be a GUID. The GUID was there, I think, as you mentioned, to make it unique.
Yep.
But so you can name it whatever you want, basically.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
No, you absolutely can. I think the reason they've done some of this is that they're imagining the person who starts new projects, tries new things. And so, well, if we throw a GUID in there, there won't be a lot of collisions. But then people probably said, but then I never know what the GUID is. It's what a pain. I've got 30 of these things sitting in there. Oh, well, what if we put your project name in there too? So I have a feeling that's how it evolved.
I do like that. Yeah.
I'm not saying that I know that's what it is, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So what can I do now here in secrets.json? And I guess I got to get things moving a little bit. It's already 8:34. We're flying today. Is I am going to need a client ID, which I can enter this way. I can enter it just like that. At least that was my testing, is I can do this. And then I can also type client. The other one I need is client secret. And, and I'm just going to put client secret for now, because I don't actually really care. And that works. This is fine. Now, the particular app settings provider that we're using, the settings provider that we're using is JSON based. And so because it's JSON based, they also support you doing this, which is you may prefer. You may like this.
That's how I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I pointed out that this settings provider supports this, is when you think about environment variables, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Sure.
So in your environment variable, you can develop this way. And then in your environment variable, you're going to use this. And there are even some scenarios where colons are not supported. And so if I recall correctly, I think, I forget, I don't remember if they tell you, hey, you ought to change this to something else, like an underscore, or if they say that they'll do it for you. It's in the docs. I didn't get that far to really, really dig into that. I kind of let that go.
Okay.
So the next step is, you might be saying, well, now how do I that's great that I'm going to set up for Google, but I need to integrate Google sign-in into the app.
Mhm.
And it turns out that the documentation does point you out to that. We're going to fly through this a little bit. The documentation actually says a lot more than you need just to get started, but integrating Google sign-in into your web app, it's all pretty much here. I found that I was able to, let me make sure that this is going to open somewhere else just in case. I mean, I do plan to delete this app. I'm totally fine
Mhm.
with it. I'm not super concerned because if I accidentally leak a secret here, because in your portal, and I'm just making sure because we don't have an Azure mask here. So I'm going to do this there. Oh, well, it did it anyway. I guess it's not that big a deal because I'm going to delete all of these client IDs. But as you can see, you have an OAuth 2 client ID, and I made that one called TDTS Prep Client. And you're going to get a client ID that we paste in, but then you have to go further to create a client secret. That's not going to get shown. And you paste those into the secrets JSON. I can create new client IDs by basically creating what's called, like, you're telling it I'm going to create an app, and it basically will create another ID. So this documentation got me through it. It wasn't difficult at all, I thought. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my secrets JSON. I'm going to paste that stuff in. This is the exciting part, is it's all happening offline here. I have to edit the client and then say that. So in some platforms, and Azure is one of them, you only get one shot at pulling the secret. It looks like in the Google version that's not true, because now I'm back here and able to pull it again, which is okay. There's one more thing I need to drop in. And this is, every one of these OAuth providers is going to ask you for this. And I hate that I can't really show it all that effectively. Is when I'm developing, these OAuth providers need to be able to redirect back to your application. But when you're in development, your application's sitting on your local console. So in order for that to be valid, I'm actually going to paste in that localhost 7053 is authorized right now.
You could, and that will totally work.
There's another way to do it, yeah.
Yep, just real quick, I'll mention it. There's the DevTunnels, which is available in the full version of Visual Studio 2022, even though it was a preview feature not that long ago. What that does is exposes that, basically gives a public endpoint to your website running locally on your machine.
Yep. Right. Okay, it's fighting me. Why is it fighting me so much? It's actually not letting me update. I say add URI. You know what the problem is let me refresh this page. There is a modal callout on this page that just would not close. It refused to close. And so it wasn't letting me type anything into any edit box. But now that that's completed, that's done. Okay. Let me make sure I have closed the secrets.json. Okay. And now we're back. And I should now be able to close this, run it. And let's try it. Let's try logging in and see what we get kind of for free here. Is we got a button, use another service to log in. So I'm going to click Google, and it's going to say, well, oh, interesting. Okay. What did I do wrong there?
Do we put the values in?
I did. It does
Upstream.
say that it may take a few minutes to take effect.
Okay.
Oh, actually, it didn't change it. Interesting. Okay, let me do that again. So I refreshed the page, and it did not change. It did not change. So now let me save this. I'm going to refresh the page. Okay, that looks better. Let's come back. Let's try Google again. Okay, choose an account. Here, it's my Gmail account because now everybody, I suppose, can email me. And then they say, please enter an address. Let's register. They're like, oh, look, you don't have a real. Let's confirm the account. And so now I am able to log in with Google. Just works. Didn't have to know my password. I didn't have to put in my Google password, and I'm in now with that, which I kind of like.
But you must have authenticated to Google somewhere in that.
Oh yeah. Oh no, you're right. I'm already authenticated with Google
because of what you did to get the app, the client ID and secret probably going.
Right. Yeah. Or just the fact that it's probably always logged in because that way, email just opens and stuff like that. Yeah. So that worked. That worked.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And
can go ahead.
Just that there's kind of a number of patterns that we'll with some of the links we'll drop one in there, but there's a number of patterns of doing identity, and this is I believe this one's using the auth code grant, which is basically you're going out to that Google site when you click that button, and if you look at the URL, it says type equals code, and there should be a code that came down from the site. And then what happens is when you fill that information in, that client ID and secret that we put in there now goes and takes the code and client ID and the secret and exchanges that for a token. And that token now gives us the permissions to do what it is that we need to go ahead and do on our site.
Right.
Or calling a web API or whatever it is.
So what I want to try to do is see if we can get the Microsoft one going as well.
Okay.
Because what happens is you'll see that the ASP.NET Core stuff by default just adds it in. What I have not gotten to take a real deep look at is, saying like why I don't get, why can't I do this? And then I realized, oh yeah, because I got to go add the NuGet package. So we need to add the NuGet package for a Microsoft account. Add that, install, apply, lawyers. Thank you. And now this is going to be fine. Okay. And it's pretty much the same thing where it's saying, well, you need these, and it really just needs these same two pieces.
Yep. Because it's part of that pattern of flow. These Microsoft and Google and Facebook as well are called identity providers. And
right.
There's a common way using the OAuth specifications for using them as an identity provider.
Right. So in the portal, I'm interested in figuring out how you set all this stuff up in an automated fashion, but we would head down to Microsoft Entra ID. And because we need an app registration, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Were you expecting it somewhere else?
I was. But it does look like it's doing Microsoft AAD-IAM up there. So, okay, we'll let it go.
Yeah. So let's open the documentation for this. So here's what a lot of people may not know, actually, is Microsoft Azure Active Directory is now named Microsoft Entra ID. So when you go around the portal, it's the AAD stuff is giving way to this naming, and that's why I ended up there. And I actually thought I already had an application. I did. Here it is. So I already have an application in place, and Azure Mask comes in and says like, nope, you're not going to see the client ID, which is nice. And I'm actually quite confident in showing you the secrets panel because this is different from, and to understand what I'm saying, that's not a complaint. Just be careful if you're on the Google Cloud, the Google client ID, is that there was no masking of this at all. This is Azure Mask doing this, so that's being a little unfair to Google there. But this is not Azure Mask doing this on the next page. I have created a client secret already, but it's masked, and I can't get it back. Like, that's over.
Yeah,
I created it. I had my one opportunity to get it, and that's it. The secret ID is a GUID that would allow me now to manage this secret on an automated fashion, which is good. I could basically refer to the secret by that GUID. And what I could do is I could have some code that maybe naturally cycles these secrets and just does it for me and gets rid of the old one and stuff like that. So this Azure Mask is jumping in and masking that. That's an extension. That is not something that the Azure portal is doing. I just want to make that clear when I say that, hey, I was able, but this Azure Mask doesn't bother doing this because the portal itself is doing that. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So I can go ahead. Here's where I'm going to move off screen. I'm going to go ahead and create another client secret. And I need to give it they want you to give it like a friendly name, which I'm going to do. And you can set an expiration for it. And I'm just going to let you know some of the defaults here: 3 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, and then custom. I'm just going to leave it at 6 months for now. I plan to delete all these secrets at the end of the show in any case. Oh, and this was masked too. Azure, just so everyone can see, Azure Mask did mask that. That's kind of nice. I've got a copy to clipboard here. So I'm going to do that. And now what I have to do is I have to pull our Visual Studio instance off screen again. Sorry about that. I know that's super exciting when everything's not happening on screen, but you know.
Yep. And while Chris is doing that, he's putting that in the secrets file like we saw earlier. You could certainly at this point wire up to something that stores your secrets outside of your code base or outside of your machine, like for example, something like Azure Key Vault, but there are other similar versions out there. So when you need that secret, you reach out to that service and bring it back down to your device.
Yep. I am a big fan of the secrets file.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really nice.
Yeah, same.
Just double checking that I have the client ID correct. Looks good, because now I'm going to close that file and bring us back online here. Okay. Okay. Is there a redirect URI I put in? There is. Oh, but it's the old one. So I think, meaning every time that you create a new app in Visual Studio, it might pull a different port for this. So let me.
And that step is kind of important while you're filling that out, right? So the token, you get the authorization code, you send your client ID and secret up to the token provider, and the token provider says, great, I've got a token, where do I send this? And it's sending it back to your website. And that's important that goes to the one place where you want that token to be used. Otherwise, it could, because it's sending something that gives you permissions, and you want that to go back to just your site and no other property.
So now, just by adding that extension, adding the NuGet package, adding the extension method, we're getting a second button here.
That's cool.
It says log in using your Microsoft account. So a lot of this stuff's happening for us. I know it's not styled, but then this is what has happened. And this is where I got to on this, is where it says, okay, the request is not valid for this application's user audience configuration. In order to use the common endpoint, the application must be configured with consumer as the user audience. So I think that this is talking about portal setup, but I didn't know for sure where this was. Let's see.
It's using the sign. So it's going to a route of sign in -Microsoft.
Right.
Does the sign in Google show the same error?
No.
Really?
I think this is a configuration step in the app registration, is what I think it is. Now, what I haven't done here, and again, because we kind of got to the show and a lot of people know that it was like, well,
nope, sorry,
let's see if we can figure it out on the show. So where is the documentation? What did I do with it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's see what it says here. And maybe I just didn't pay attention to something. Create the app in the developer portal. We definitely added the NuGet package. We went to app registrations. We said, this might have been, I might want to try this again. The Microsoft account package supports app registrations created using accounts in any organizational directory or accounts in any organizational directory and Microsoft accounts. And I'm kind of wondering if, I'm trying to remember if I did that. Okay, available by clicking endpoints on the overview page. I wonder now. I wonder.
Yeah. So there's a in
Oh,
that same place you were in the documentation.
yeah. Oh, whoops. It's a different document.
That's
Let me
okay.
bring that out here.
So on the left side on the menu where it says additional claims,
Uh-huh.
I believe this is where it's starting to get into having multiple options in there for your. So if you scroll down and a little further, so this is what we're doing, right? We've got Google, we've got a couple different things in there.
Oh,
The authentication scope.
look at that.
I think that's where we need to be.
Okay. In the sample app, Google's are automatically added by the framework. That's funny because I don't remember doing anything like that, which doesn't mean that it wouldn't work. It just means that maybe I wouldn't be able to do a whole lot more. Like, for instance, I'm not pulling down like the picture because, a lot of times it's nice to put a picture up,
Yeah.
things like that.
And so I'm jumping at this really quick. Maybe this isn't where we need to be, but I saw the note in there said, "Hey, you've got to look at the common piece for the Microsoft account," and that URL had a section there about common related to common. So that was why I jumped at that. And I'm sorry if I just derailed you from where you were heading.
No. Required for indication. The other thing, though, is that I didn't follow the instructions, believe it or not, because why would I do that? So let's look back at these instructions in the docs.
Okay.
These instructions say the Microsoft account package supports app registrations created using this option, accounts in any organizational directory, or this option, accounts in any organizational directory and Microsoft accounts. Then it says by default. So I think that you can change these. But because there's 7 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to app registrations and I'm going to create a brand new registration. And let me see if I can bring this out here so we can look at it. So this is a new registration. It's called Try Again, of course. And what people don't know is that I picked this the first time through. But the documentation seems to say like, well, by default, we support this. I am not going to pretend that I know exactly what the difference is yet. So I'm going to go ahead and register that and create that app registration. And now I have to go and run out to the user secrets and put this information in.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious about is it that simple that just pay attention? However, it does seem to say that if you want to narrow it down, it's okay. It's just not the default.
Right. So think about and I don't know if this is the issue, but think about what's being said there. So a single tenant means Azure or Microsoft Entra. That's a location where my organization is or where my workplace is. Or if you create one your own, maybe we create one for the TheDevTalkShow to use as a common store that people can get accounts created. Or I can use Entra accounts for domains, but also a personal account. I might have an app that goes across maybe Outlook on personal, but also be able to use Outlook as part of my organization. So you've got that flexibility to use either one. And then the last one down there was just personal accounts, so Outlook Online. So again, I think it goes to your scope. What's the right amount of scope your application needs to be able to support? And maybe it's everything, maybe it's one or the other, and you've got the flexibility to choose.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think what happened was that I basically just wasn't paying attention when I created that app registration. And now that we were looking at the docs, I said like, oh, hold on a second. There's something that specifically is telling me that I picked the wrong wrong one. So, or at least it's not that I picked the wrong one. It's more like you picked one that we only support if you make a few changes.
Yeah.
Now the problem is I have to find the redirect URI stuff.
That should be under the secrets.
Is it under secrets?
At the top. So the secrets are kind of at the bottom. It's a section up at the top of that, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's not here. Okay, hold on. No, it's not it. Because we're really close here. Now it's just complaining about not having the redirect URI.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm trying to find it real quick on an app that I might have.
that's pretty much where we're at. Is
actually under authentication. Sorry, if you look at the manage, so go to your app registration, go to manage, and authentication at the top. It says add a platform.
Oh,
and then on your platform, click web.
You pick web. Yeah, I forgot that I did that. So we need this.
It used to be a little more out in front, but they've mixed it in with all the rest of the platform stuff.
And I'm trying to remember, what is it? Hey, this is it right here. Sign in Microsoft. I did this. I remember doing this last night when I was trying to run through it, and then I forgot. Yeah. So now let's see.
Which kind of maps back, because that error page had sign in Microsoft.
It said it. And so here we go.
Oh, wow.
It's basically saying, hey, this app registration that I called TDTS try again, it just wants your permission to be able to do this. And I'm going to say accept. And so, ta-da,
yay,
register, click here to confirm. Let's go back. Let's log in. We'll use Microsoft. And here it is. That's my Microsoft account. If I log out, so everybody in the world now knows the Microsoft account and Google account. And yeah, it's all working. Plus we had earlier, we were able to log in with the TheDevTalkShow as well. I think it was outlook.com, pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which should still be here. And that works too. So all three forms in the same app, all working. I knew I had some trouble with the Microsoft one last night, but certainly you helped me out with that. And not to mention that by default, they're saying, hey, this is the option I ended up picking, accounts in any organizational directory and Microsoft accounts.
Yeah.
I think like it says here, if you change the authorization endpoint and token endpoint members of the account options, and what you do is you would go to your app registration. So like it's not like this is out of reach. It's just, I think really it was one of those things was like, well, I'm not 100% sure. Is if you go to your app registration, there is an endpoints button and they're all here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the trick was I'm guessing that if I look at the two different registrations and turn off the mask and look at the endpoints, they're probably different because one of them enables organizational accounts alongside personal and the other is personal only. So going back to your code and setting these correct endpoints in this options section should do the trick. I say this options section, I don't even have it up, but here it is. This option section here, that should do the trick.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's 8:59, so you know what that means.
It working.
Yeah, it did get it working, so we made it. As always, the last 10 minutes of the Dev Talk Show are always the most exciting, right?
That's it. That's what we got to do. You just got to wait. You tune in the last 10 minutes, and you're off and running.
And then we say, let's try something that we never gotten working before and see if we can. And sometimes we don't. We're on a little bit of a winning streak here, so I don't want the next time when we don't, it's like, well, because that's happened too.
Sure.
So in any case, 9:00, time for morning stand up out our way, and hopefully everybody is ready with their coffee or tea or whatever it is that gets you going in the morning, got enough sleep and ready to face Thursday. We're almost to the weekend. Thanks for helping me through that there, Rich.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for walking through it. It's awesome.
Yeah. So hopefully that helped you. If you've ever been looking at tutorials and you just say like, hey, I got stuck on this step. I got just stuck on this step. Just know that we get stuck on it too. But hopefully maybe there was a tip there or two to help save a lot of frustration? And if so, let us know down in the comments on YouTube, youtube.com/TheDevTalkShow. And also, you could respond to us on Twitter at TheDevTalkShow. And hey, if you joined us on Twitch, we really appreciate it. I hope we were really focused there. I don't know if any comments came in that we missed, but in any case, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And for Rich Ross, I'm Chris Gomez, and we will see all of you next time on the Dev Talk Show.